सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Om. I will share the screen and we will continue from where we left. So the current topic is just really introducing the different warriors.
Yes.
It's the first couple of verses. So I emphasized last time that it's not important to remember all the names. If one forgets, that's okay. Um, yeah, if you can continue reading from here.
From Duryodhana. Yes.
Yeah.
Hari Om. Duryodhana told Drona that there are unrevealed experts in fighting and logistics in the army of Pandavas. In the war that was about to take place, it was not enough to be able to send arrows. Logistics were also required. Therefore, all of them were top notch fighters in battle, equal to Bhima and Arjuna in their knowledge of warfare. Duryodhana mentioned their names to Drona because he knew he had a soft corner in his heart for these people. Maheshwasa was the name given to people who wielded bows of great fame. Arjuna's bow, for example, was known as Gandhiva.
One pause here.
There,
So, Mahesh Vastra is also one of the names of Vishnu Bhagwan from Vishnu Sasam. Mahesh Vastra, Bhartashi.
Maheshwasa, pardon, is
It's also one of the
Maheshwasa
names of Vishnu Bhagwan from the
Vishnu.
Sasam.
Okay, okay.
So because Vishnu Bhagwan also has the bow.
Bow, that's why.
I think
Okay.
it's called I forget what it's called, but it starts with
Sure.
uh,
There are many.
yeah.
Yes.
So I was just recalling the name of the bow, but continue. I'll
Okay.
continue.
There are many stories about these bows. Each person had a special conch, shankha, also a part of his equipment. Before a man started fighting, he would work himself up by blowing his trumpet, which may be where the expression blowing your own horn originated. This was known as a warming up exercise. These conches also had names, as we shall see later. Thus, these were all the people of famous bows. It was not that the bows had made a big name for themselves, but that the men who wielded them were considered to be great. There were experts in warfare equal to Bhima and Arjuna. The king of Viratha was there along with Drupada, the father of Draupadi, and a man of great valor, Maharatha. A Maharatha was one who was able to continue fighting while protecting himself, his driver, and his horses. Because he needed his horses to pull his chariot, he could not allow them to get hurt. He also had to be able to protect his driver because if he allowed him to be hit, no one would want to drive for him. A great charioteer then was one who was able to neutralize all of the arrows that came to his horses, his driver, or to himself. Such men were called Maharathas. They were not only ordinary soldiers. Every one named here by Duryodhana was a Maharatha without question. Next, Duryodhana point out six more unrevealed archers who would be fighting against them. Drisaketu was the name of an important warrior who was well
Drishtaketu.
known.
Drishtaketu.
Drisaketu was well known at that time. Chekit, uh, Chekithana, Chekithana also enjoyed a great reputation. Although not specifically mentioned by name, the king of Kasi was presented by Duryodhana as a man of great valor. Purujit and Kuntibhoja were also acknowledged by Duryodhana, and Saibya was described by him as the most exalted of men. Yadhamanyu is described as a powerful chieftain, and Uttamajas is also known to be very mighty. Everyone mentioned thus far is in Duryodhana's introduction is a great chieftain. Also mentioned was Arjuna's son, Saubhadra Abhimanyu, born of Subhadra, one of Arjuna's wives. The five sons of Draupadi, born to each of five Pandavas, were also there. All these people were great warriors, Maharathas, as we said earlier. The various levels of expertise have been defined elsewhere and are given below. एकोदशसहस्राणि यदा एदयस्तु दविनां शास्त्रप्रविणश्च महारथ इति स्मृता. He who can be by himself fight with 10,000 bowmen and who is an expert in using weapons and in the signs of war is said to be Maharatha. Amithan योदयेद्यस्तु सम्प्रोक्ता तिरतस्तुश्च रतस्त्वेकेन यो योद्धा तन्यूनो वृद्धार्थ स्मृता. He who can fight with 1,000 to 10,000 bowmen simultaneously is called a Atirata. He who can fight with 1,000 bowmen is called a Ratha, and one who is a little less than that in capacity is called a Ardharatha.
So, say, it's beautifully described, but we have to also understand that some of this may be exaggeration because,
Okay.
I don't think, but, in typical warfare, I don't think one can have the stamina to fight 10,000 people, forget 1,000 people, forget 100 people also. But, maybe here what they're talking about is those astras that one is able to invoke, where you are able to, have Agni Astra, Varuna Astra, which can decimate like large battalions completely. So maybe that is the Upalakshana or what's being indicated over here. And it's not necessarily being pointed out, but it's more speaking to the siddhis as opposed to physical capacity as like just strength and whatnot. So just wanted to add that clarification. What else was there about that? Yeah,
The
but
names of them.
yeah, it just uses a lot of names. Like I said, I'm going to forget tomorrow. I'm not saying it's a good thing to forget, but I'm just saying that it's it's not something I'm going to remember, and it's probably not the important focus. So we'll move to the next one.
Yes. The purpose, we have gone. Yeah. The purpose of introducing the warriors. Before continuing with these descriptive verses, it is important to understand their purpose. To provide the context necessary for us to come to know Arjuna's condition, the story that is unfolding is not an illustrative story. Illustrative stories are useful tools for communication, no doubt, but here the story is to tell us how the teaching came about. This information is also given in the Upanishads, where we are told that a given person went to another person in order to be taught, and that person had gone to yet another person, and so on. Thus, a story is told. For example, in the sixth chapter of Chandogyopanishad, there is a story about a great teacher, Uddalaka, and his son called Shvetaketu. When this boy was 12 years of age, Uddalaka decided to send him to a Gurukula because he did not think his son could learn any more at home. Shvetaketu spent 12 years in the Gurukula and came home when he was 24. All this is mentioned in the Upanishad. The young man returned home very proud, and seeing his father asked, "Did you ask your teacher for that knowledge, gaining which everything is as well known?" The son replied, "I don't think my teacher had such a knowledge. Otherwise, he would have taught it to me." Shvetaketu later asked his father if there was such a knowledge. His father proved to him that there was. By the knowledge of the cause, Karana, everything else is as well known. If you know the clay, you know the pot. The word pot is only with reference to a name and form, Nama and Rupa, for the substance clay. There is no substance in the pot other than clay for you to know. Similarly, once you know the cause of this entire creation, if there is such a cause, then everything is as well known. It is not that everything is known, but that everything is as well known. Just as you know the substance, clay, in terms of reality, you also know what Satya is and what Mithya is. If you know the real and unreal, this is all there is to know.
So I'll pause here.
Uddhan,
This is the hint
the
word.
hint.
So now this part, one cannot forget, one cannot miss. So before we proceed, I just want to clarify: is this very clear, like this particular paragraph, or is there any illustration that's required?
Sure, sure. It's clear.
It's clear, right? Okay, okay,
Yeah,
good.
yes.
Because
We'll
this is the crux of Vedanta, really. Yeah, please continue.
Uddalaka established the possibility of such a knowledge, and in time, Shvetaketu wanted to know. That is how we get Mahavakya Upadesha, the teaching of that thou art, Tattvamasi. This kind of story that reveals the context and tells about the urge to know, how it has to be known, and so on. In other words, the whole teaching methodology, Sampradaya, is brought out through these stories. It is important, therefore, to know how Arjuna, a great warrior and a man of culture and compassion, became a seeker, a jinyasu, the one who wanted to have this knowledge. In the process, we understand how a person discovers a quest in himself or herself to know the meaning of all the struggles in life. Although Krishna sometimes spoke to Arjuna strictly within the context of Mahabharata, the context can be changed to apply to anyone. For example, when Krishna told Arjuna to fight, he was speaking only to Arjuna and to no one else. Still, there is something in these that is relevant to everyone, and that is what is to be done in a given situation must be done. This context is naturally still a part of the Mahabharata, and the actual Gita is yet to begin, which it does in the second chapter. Only with the words Sri Bhagavan Uvacha does it become Bhagavad Gita. The first chapter is only the context leading to the Gita. Although the previous chapters of Mahabharata have no direct connections to the Bhagavad Gita, there is a link with reference to Arjuna's lot. Therefore, even though these first few verses of Gita have no real relevance to what we want to know. Yes, we'll scroll. Prashantji?
Can you see the screen or is it locked?
Oh,
It is locked. 1 second. Sorry. Um, Now can you see it? Okay. My other monitor was probably
yes.
was off. Yeah. Please.
Okay.
Okay. So I think this part.
Therefore, even though these first few verses of the Gita have no real relevance to what we want to know, they do give us the context, and for this reason, we look into them. Having talked to Drona about the important people in the army of Pandavas, he then changed the topic to those in his own army. Asmakam tu visistha ye thani bodha dvijotama नायक माम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तन्ब्रवामि. Whereas O learned among the twice born Brahmanas, please take note of those who are important amongst ourselves, the leaders of my army. I mention them in order to introduce them to you. The people who had joined Duryodhana were also not just ordinary soldiers. They too were leaders, Maharathas, wanting to point this out to Drona. Duryodhana again said, in order to introduce them to you, I will mention them by name. In this verse, he addressed Drona as Dvija Uttama, the best among the twice born Dvija. A Brahmana, a Kshatriya, and a Vaishya are considered to be born again when they are initiated into the Gayatri Mantra. Drona was described by Duryodhana as Uttama, the best, because he was a learned teacher of archery.
So,
Describing his own army,
can you
yeah.
just clarify here? Are you both familiar with Dvijas, concept of Dvija? It's clear, no?
Mm. Now, why do they mention them as Dvajas?
Dvijas, it's to exalt them, to give them status and respect. So it's
Okay.
like, oh, you great people, you Aryavartis, noble people, you twice born that way. So it's elevating them, such learned people.
That is the reason.
And the other thing is that, you know, in the Shastra they talk about Vijas, and it is to be understood as somebody who is born into a cultural education, sort of, so to speak. So, I don't know if I've explained this maybe during one of our introductory classes, but it's worth delving a little bit to clarify because sometimes these concepts can be contentious for people. Uh, so, they say that every single person is born an animal. We're all animals. We're all really, jivas and pashus in some sense. I mean, Ishvara is the Pashupati, but we are all pashus. Now, the culture that we are born into, there's a certain ritual called, it's your Yagdupavita ritual. So, Upanayanam ceremony. And what that samskara does is the word samskara actually means to purify. And so there's a purification involved over here. And that purification is not a physical purification like having a bath, but it's a purification of one's mind. And so, we are born to physical parents, we are born to biological parents, rather, but we are truly uh, bred as cultivated human beings through Shruti Mata and the Guru. So they are the Shastric parents. And so that's why it says that you're born twice born. So Dvija. And over here, you have different gunas. You have what constitutes the gunas of a Brahmana, the gunas of a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and so on. So, in order to be considered a Brahmana as per the Shastra, it is not just the Jati Brahmana, though there is a certain correlation over there which we cannot deny that there are correlations between your birth and your, shall we say, uh, proclivities. There are certain proclivities which also go with, it's very basic, right? That today if you are the son or a daughter of a doctor, then it is very likely that you will also take up the medical profession. And I bet you that in your life you've seen family doctors, right? Like having these family clinics where the son is also doctor. In fact, in Mumbai, there's this Dr. Kapade. So he's this sort of well-renowned doctor since several decades. And so he's a doctor. His wife is a doctor. His son is a doctor. His daughter-in-law is a doctor. And they're all like doctors in one family clinic. And they are like seeing more patients. Now we have 4 doctors in the family. I don't know if they have kids, but then they'll probably end up being doctors as well. So again, if you're the son of a Brahmana who's been chanting the Shastras, the Vedas, doing puja part, all of these things, it's very likely that you grow up listening to these things and they get cultivated in you. And then it becomes very effortless for you to chant these mantras. It's something you've grown up with. And so, you don't have to learn this when you get older as sort of like a career offering, some sort of a tutorial or whatever. So now, okay, so, there are certain correlations, but that doesn't mean that a person who is not born in a certain jati or kula is exempt from this knowledge. But again, we have to recognize that the correlation does exist, and there will always be an advantage or an edge that the person will have. If your father is a warrior, it is very likely that you will turn out to be a relatively better warrior than the average person, because you have watched your father train. Your father has trained you from a young age as well, taught you how to fight, taught you how to use weapons. So yes, you will be a Kshatriya. The chances are higher. So anyway, these things are common. Like we see also that people whose parents, not always, but of course there's a correlation that if they have been associated with the military force, then their children are also sort of interested in those things. So anyway, there's a correlation factor over there. But what defines a Brahmana, what defines a Kshatriya, whatever, is your gunas. So if you have, we know there are three gunas: Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. If in order of predominance, the gunas are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, in that order, you're a Brahmana. If it is Rajas, Sattva, Tamas, Kshatriya. If it is Rajas, Tamas, Sattva, Vaishya. And if it is Tamas, Rajas, Sattva, it is Shudra. So each of these gunas are descriptive and qualitative, not so much labels that we put on people's foreheads and define who they are. It's guna based as per the Gita. So that is the position that we take as part of the Gurukulam as well. Later, as we encounter some of these shlokas in the Bhagavad Gita, there will be one shloka which spells out the gunas in detail and explains to it based on the what do you call it? The varnas based on the gunas. Okay, so that's how the gunas play with varnas. The varna has three components. You have jati, you have karma, which is your profession, and then you have gunas, which is your attitude. And the gunas have a higher weight that's assigned to it compared to the other two. This is especially true when it comes to Vedanta, the study of Vedanta. When it comes to Karma Kanda, over there, the jati and the karma also have a significant weight over there. Because you cannot suddenly in your 30s or 40s decide that, oh, I want to become a Purohita, I want to become a Ritvik, I want to become a Pujari, because you'll never get the pronunciation right. Especially if you're not born in Bharat, if you don't speak Sanskrit, you're going to completely bungle it. That's a fact. And it's not something you can decide, but nobody can stop you from pursuing self-knowledge, because that doesn't require mastery over a certain language. It requires a certain understanding of the nuance, mastery over languages and culture and things like that. So again, we can get into more details, but I just wanted to give a slight overview, and we will come back to this in forthcoming chapters. If you'd like to continue reading, or if you have any questions.
No, fine. We'll continue. Describing his own army, Duryodhana said, Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha.
So I would say check out the annotation mark. So this is or if you see this over here over the sa, it becomes a sha. So just try to read it accordingly.
Fine. Yeah. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinya Ashwathama Vikarnascha Saumadratya Jayatraja. Oh, sorry, I couldn't read that last. Saumadat Dritaha. Yeah. Anye cha bhavaha sura madartha tyakta jivitha nanastra praharna praharnaha sarve yuddha visaradha. Yuddha
Yes.
Visharada. Yuddha Visharada.
Sharada.
It's Shah.
So,
Your Honor, Bhishma, Karna, and Kripa, who is always a victorious in war. Ashwathama, Vikarna, Saumadhati, son of Somadatta, Bhurishrava, Bhurishrava, Jayadratha, and many other warriors, all experts in warfare, armed with many kind of weapons, who have given up their lives for my sake, are present on our side. Instead of calling him by name, Duryodhana addressed Drona as Bhavan, meaning your honor or you, sir, because Drona's dearest disciples were on the other side. Duryodhana was afraid that his heart would not be in the fight. He was therefore he was therefore always trying to win Drona over. Later in the battle, he began taunting him, saying that the reason he was not fighting his best was because his heart was with the Pandavas. When Duryodhana was losing and Bhishma was on the deathbed, Drona became Duryodhana's commander in chief. He became so inflamed by Duryodhana's taunts that he was determined to take Yudhishthira dead or alive. In this verse, Duryodhana acknowledged Drona's importance by using the term Bhavan. Only then did he point out the invincible Bhishma, the oldest in the family and the strongest. There was no one to equal Bhishma at that time. When he fought, no one could stand against him. He had the boon that death would come to him only when he chose it. Even Krishna, who had promised not to fight, became so impressed with Bhishma's strength that he actually took up his chakra. Only then did he remember that he had promised not to fight. That Krishna had been removed to pick up his chakra was enough for Bhishma and was that caused what caused him to give up in the end. The others described in this verse are Karna, Duryodhana's answer for Arjuna, and Kripa, presented here as one who was always victorious in any conflict and who could defeat an army single handedly. Duryodhana also remembered to mention Drona's son, Ashwatthama, along with his own brother, Vikarna, who was the youngest and of the same age as Ashwatthama Jayadratha, a very important person who caused the death of Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, and Saumadati were also presented to Drona by Duryodhana.
so couple of intertwined stories within stories within stories. I'm sure you are familiar with all of these, right? Like
Oh,
Jet had
yes.
taken off and things like that. Very beautiful as you think about it. And this part where Krishna had to pick up the chariot, or he chose to pick up the chariot, not had to, because you can't make Bhagwan do anything that you want. Uh, it is very beautiful because there were two vows which were taken in the Mahabharata. I mean, in the context of the war, that is, there were
Mm,
many vows taken in the entire Mahabharata. But
mm,
in the context of the war, Krishna said, I will not pick up arms. I will not. And second was Bhishma, who said, oh, I will make sure that I make you fight. So now there are two people, two great people. One is an Avtara, the other is a great Bhakta.
what?
Ishvara and the Bhakta. Now the Bhakta makes a pratigna and Bhagavan makes a pratigna. One of their pratigna has to break. Whose pratigna will break? Bhakta or Bhagavan? Either it will be Bhagavan's. Not because of a weakness, but the Bhagavan wants to prove the Bhakta right. And so therefore he pretends to be instigated, picks up the chariot as a chakra to throw it at Bhishma and fulfills Bhishma's pratigna that I will make you pick up arms against me. Which is very beautiful. So Bhagavan broke his own promise to keep his Bhakta's promise. So this is not a weakness on Bhagavan's part, this is a glory on Bhagavan's part and a glory on the Bhakta's part, both. So this is amazing, when you think about how beautifully this played out. In fact, at that point, Krishna was ready to be killed. He said, please, this is the greatest death I can ask for. When Bhagavan is, setting me free, then what else could I ask? Like, please, then Krishna smiles. He's like, okay, your wish is also fulfilled, and now I'm putting this chariot wheel back. So, very nice. And the story about this Jayadratha, it's and for the folks who are not familiar with the Mahabharata, because all of this is not there in the Gita verses, it is contextual. The context is present in the larger Mahabharata verses. So, Abhimanyu was ruthlessly slain by several people in the Kaurava army. He was ganged up on, which is not permitted. It's against the rules of warfare. And Jayadatta was one of the people who sort of organized this whole you know he was one of the responsible people who caused the death. So Arjuna, as any father would, was extremely distraught, very angry, and sometimes they say that don't make promises when you're happy and don't make decisions when you're angry. And he made a decision that if by sundown tomorrow I don't destroy Jayadatta, then I will immolate myself in the fire. Taking his own life as a pratikya. Now, somebody would argue, not really a smart move. But then again, when a father is grieving the son's loss, you're not thinking very clearly. But now, if Arjuna dies, it's the end of the war, essentially, right? Kauravas win. Because Arjuna is the most powerful on the Pandava side. Technically Krishna, but he's not fighting. So it's Arjuna. Now the other Pandavas are also pretty strong, obviously. But they don't have the same capacity as Arjuna to fend off so many people and to actually change the tide of the war. Arjuna by far was the greatest one. Like he and Bhishma, they were really tied. There were certain instances when Arjuna would even outshine Bhishma. Though Bhishma was consistently good, Arjuna had some moments of weakness up and down. But Arjuna had that internal drive and that fire and almost like an instinct where sometimes he was able to tap into it and he would excel Bhishma. As we saw in the Virat War and certain instances in the Kurukshetra Yuddha as well. So the story goes that, okay, so Jayadratha had to be protected by the Kauravas at all costs. Because if Jayadratha is protected, they didn't have to win the war. They just had to protect Jayadratha for a day. And so there were different formations. You have like this formation, then you have like different types of formations. This was a needle formation. So what the needle formation was it was a very long needle-like shape of the infantry, and it created a lot of distance between Jayadratha, who was at the very corner, the opposite end of that needle, and Arjuna, who was on this end. And the distance became so long that it was almost pretty much impossible for Arjuna to get to. So this was like, Arjuna has basically signed his own death warrant. Okay, iska to ho gaya kaam, finished. This guy, he made a foolish promise and he's going to die today. So the Kauravas are all very happy that, oh, perfect, this is exactly what we wanted. So they do this needle formation. Now, Krishna Bhagavan is an expert charioteer. So he's maneuvering the horses from here to there, to here to there, all the way from this place, all the way to that place. But the distance is real. It's a real distance. And the horses are thirsty and they're tired. And then he has to stop in between, right? Because Bhagwan is Bhagwan, but the horses are horses. And the horses have a certain stamina and capacity beyond which they cannot exceed. So, there's an instance where the horses are tired, so Bhagwan also pets them, he gives them water, he takes care of them, they're like overheated. This is a very interesting fact. I'll ask you a question, okay? Just a trivia. Which animal on the earth has the greatest stamina? This animal can travel the furthest without getting tired. What animal?
I guess
Camel?
horse,
Which one?
Camel?
Shubhraji? Camel?
Camel,
horse.
yeah.
Camel horse?
Camel can have, I mean, stay longer time without food and
Love
water.
yes.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't have, the answer
It
is the
doesn't have the stamina. Yeah.
humans.
Oh,
Humans can outrun over long distances any creature on this planet. Any creature. Whether you talk about
you can,
horse, dogs, sorry,
you said outrun.
outrun, yeah. Not race, outrun over long distances. Distance running, marathon.
Okay. For long distances.
Distance. You can outrun. You can outrun, outpace over a long distance. If you have a marathon runner and he's running, by the time he's reached the end of the line, the horse will be dead. He'll not even reach the end of the line. He'll be
Maybe
dead.
deer? Deer?
Deer also dead.
Deers?
It will have to stop. It will have to stop and it'll have to take its breath and it'll get tired. It cannot go long distance. A creature is just going to collapse out of exhaustion. So that's why these human beings were such prolific hunters back in the day, because what they would do is they didn't have to run fast. You don't have to run as fast as a deer. You just have to continue keeping a pace, whatever that pace is, whether it is like, I don't know, 9 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, whatever that running pace, that fast pace is, they will keep a steady pace. And they know that no matter how far the animal goes, in 1 hour, in 2 hours, in 2.5 hours, we're going to catch up with the animal, it will be dead. It'll be dead or it'll be so exhausted that it can't proceed, and then we will hunt it down and kill it. So that's how human beings basically made their survival a guarantee, because we have this long distance capacity. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's brilliant. But the horses get tired and the camels get tired. So anyway, that was a little bit of a segue. So the horses are tired. Bhagwan is taking care of the horses. All of this thing is happening. The needle is still very long, and Jayadratha is standing there right at the end, hating and laughing that ha ha ha, game over, I won. So this is when Bhagwan sort of uh, creates an eclipse, right? As the story goes, he throws his chakra up in the sky, and it blots out the sun. Now the needle formation starts dissipating because you're not supposed to fight after sundown. That's one of the rules of the war. So that they're like, oh, in fact, they would not have followed the rule of the war, by the way, the Kauravas. They were ready to keep cheating as much as they wanted. But it's more like now they've become comfortable. Their guard has dropped. And so they see that, okay, now it's sunset and Arjuna has to kill himself. So, we can just break out of the formation. And at that point, Krishna Bhagavan says, shoot. So Arjuna shoots this arrow and it takes off Jayadratha's head and he dies. So that's the story of Jayadratha. We can continue. Maybe let's take a pause after this particular section. Okay.
Having mentioned these people by name, Duryodhana then pointed out that there were many other warriors who had come to join him on the battlefield. Duryodhana's words, other warriors who have given up their lives for my sake, Anye cha bhava surah surah madharthe tyakta jivitah, can be taken here as a divine omen of what was to come. Had they given up their lives as he had said, he would have had a dead army on his hands. He meant that they were ready to give up their lives. But what he said was an example of Daiva, certain words that indicate what is to come. Such words are not deliberately spoken. The speaker means one thing, but the words themselves means something else. In fact, these warriors had already given up their lives for Duryodhana's sake. They were all going to die. This Daiva is very uncanny. It comes out. Here it came out in Duryodhana's speech. His defeat was indicated by his own words. Who were these people? They were people who had a variety of weapons with them. Weapons can either praharanas, those that can be aimed and released like an arrow or spear, or shastras, weapons that are held in one's hand. like a mace or sword. Not only did these people come with all these weapons, but they were experts in using them. They had a thorough knowledge of weaponry and warfare, some having expertise in more than one particular martial art. In the next verse, Duryodhana, assessing the overall strength of of the two armies, continued this attempt to arouse Drona's enthusiasm. Shall I read the verse?
No, no, now we'll do next time. This
Yeah.
first time. Okay. Any questions so far, or we'll close? Let's close. Sorry, you were saying something?
Fine. No.
Yes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om